The point of anything that I want to say on this program is to try to make Jesus someone who enters into our life and is real. Stay tuned. I want the real Jesus. Hello, my name is Father Mike Manning. I'm a Catholic priest. I'm coming to you today with the desire to open up to you a power. We all want power in our lives, don't we? We're looking for it in our cars. We're looking for it in our lives. One of the most important powers that we can have is the power of God coming into our life. The power of God to be able to bring peace when there's a great deal of confusion and disruption in our hearts. The power to be able to make bridges when we find people that we're not able to relate to the way we should, even people we should love. Give me the power to do that. Then there's the power to be able to use the talents that I have in my life. I'm so afraid of that. I'm afraid that people will laugh at me, or I'm too lazy. And I want power to come in. And the power is our Lord Jesus Christ entering into our lives and touching us in our weakness and touching us in our alienation. Now, I want to talk to you from the Bible. I want to allow you to be able to hear the force of Christ coming into your life. I'm going to read you something that maybe you've heard before, but I want to read it and then see if maybe this is going to open up that power that we're looking for. This is a reading from the Gospel of Mark. And it's from the 8th chapter. It's the verse 22. But listen to these words now from the Gospel of Mark. When Jesus and his disciples arrived in Bethsaida, people brought to him a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. Putting spittle on his eye, he laid his hands on the man and asked, "Do you see anything?" Looking up, the man replied, "I see people looking like trees and walking." Then he laid hands on the man's eyes a second time, and he saw clearly. His sight was restored, and he could see everything distinctly. Then Jesus sent him home and said, "Do not even go into the village." I love the Gospel of Mark. It opens up a door of Jesus that I find that I can relate to, that I can speak to, that he speaks to me in my own life. I'd like to go through this in a little step-by-step and see if maybe we can get in touch with that power of Christ entering into our lives. Now, Jesus is busy doing all the things that he's doing, healing people, preaching. And suddenly a man comes up who is blind. And the people say to him, "Would you touch this man?" I love that little nuance, because when we talk about Jesus coming into the world, we talk not about God up in the clouds, far away from us, but a God who actually touches us, not just touches us in a metaphysical way or in a spiritual way, but touches us physically. God comes and touches us, and they know that there's power in that touch, and that's that power that we want. And they say, "Oh, Jesus, would you touch this person?" And now, this is what's interesting, because it opens up a door of an insight into who Jesus was through the Gospel of Mark that we don't think of very much. And it's an insight into the humility of Jesus. Now, a lot of times we're thinking of Jesus and we're thinking of Christ as, oh, he's the great king, and sometimes in our pictures his hair is perfect and his clothes are all rich and fancy, and somehow he can be very distant. But when you read through the Gospel of Mark, especially in this little verse, in these little verses that we've had, we find a Christ who isn't concerned about being known in big ways. Gosh, we live in a world in which if you want to be important in life, you've got to toot your own horn. You've got to be very special. If you look at television stars and you see the glitter and watching those shows and, let's get the paparazzi around them and let's get people all special. And we even are concerned about getting an American Idol. And I really marvel at the title of a television program that will raise a human being, a man or a woman, to an American Idol. And we want to look up at these people. We do the same adulation with regard to sports people. Oh my gosh, I love this basketball player, this baseball player, this football player. And somehow, oftentimes because of the millions of dollars they get, and also because of their great skill, we raise them up and people are saying, hey, I want to get his autograph. Oh, I want to get close to him. Oh, let's shout and scream because this person is around. Oh, and the same kind of adulation and the greatness of people can be seen in the political world. Oh, people running for office, people trying to get the attention of other people and say, oh yeah, oh man, there's that person that we want to elect. And that person is up there trying to say the right words and trying to get across to people in a way that they're going to vote for them. All of this big, big world that seems so important suddenly is contrasted with Jesus, the Son of God, who comes into the world and is asked to touch someone, but what does he do? Instead of saying, okay, I'm going to do something and I want you to all look around and watch this now. I am going to change this man's eyes. I'm going to do it. So everybody, hey, are the lights on? Is everybody there? What does he do? He gets the man by the arm and he says, come on, let's go out of the village. So he leaves the place where people are and he goes into places of seclusion. And there he is standing with the man, perhaps alone, just able to express what he feels, the love that he has for this man, and the man reaching out and longing to be able to have his eyes opened. Remember this. Remember this in our insecurity, in our struggle to try to be important in life. Remember the example of Christ in his humility. He doesn't need people in crowds like the politicians or the movie stars or the music stars or the people that seem so important in our life. He doesn't need that adulation. He's willing to go and work God's power in his life in quiet, in moving away with real humility, with a real sense of, I don't need that adulation. Think about that in your own life, would you? Think of the call of God to say, look, if you believe that I love you, if the love of my Father has touched you, and this is what Jesus is saying, it isn't that I've got to go over to get adulation from people. I can relax and I can do what God asks of me in simple ways. Think about that. So here we have Christ coming and bringing this man, getting him away from the crowds, wanting to care and minister to him in a way that isn't caught with lights and adulation. And what does he do? Well, I'm not a Greek scholar, but I do read the New Testament in Greek. And I went to the word that spoke about, as the translation said, Jesus put spittle on the man's eyes. Spittle. He put spittle on the eyes. Well, I went to the Greek, and actually the verb that's used is not, he kind of like spit in his hand and then spread spittle. It really is saying that Christ spit in the eye without any kind of standing of the part. He just spit in the eye. And then he lays hands on the person. He touches that person. He comes in intimate, caring, touching of that person. Well, this says another important fact about the insight into who Jesus is. Number one, he's filled with the deep love that his Father has for him. And this gives him confidence, and he doesn't have to shout this out to all the crowds and say, hey, hey, make sure that you love me and make sure that you know that how important I am. But the second thing is that Jesus touches our physical body with spittle and with his hands. And I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about the importance of this world, this touch, this reality of the physical as an expression of God's presence. Listen to this message. I'm going to be coming right back. Jesus the humble, and Jesus the one who touches us. I'm going to be leading a pilgrimage to Mexico, and I'd love to have you come with me. I know that if you come with me, we're going to experience a deepening of our love for the Lord as we get very close to the beautiful spirituality of the people of Mexico. Mexico is a wonderful country. I've spent many months there, and I know that if you come with me, you're going to come away with a deeper love for our Lord Jesus Christ than you ever had before. And you're going to be able to meet so many new friends, not only those that are going to be part of this wonderful pilgrimage, but the people of Mexico in a rich, beautiful way. We're going to be flying to a place called Zacatecas. Isn't that exciting? It's filled with churches and wonderful chances for us to get very close to this spirituality that I'm talking about. Friends, Neo is a place where there's a wonderful devotion to the infant child Jesus. Then we're going to a place that I consider home whenever I go to Mexico. It's a place called Guanajuato. It's a state, and in that state is a wonderful city called San Miguel Allende. I spent many months there trying to learn Spanish, and I think if you come, you're going to wonder, why in heaven's name did I wait so long to come to wonderful, wonderful, new and alive Mexico? But we are going to cap off this wonderful time, not only in Zacatecas and Guanajuato, but we're going to go to Mexico City and be able to experience the power of the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe and be with all of the people to share that wonderful time. This is a chance of a lifetime. Please join us. The story of the gospel that we've been reading is the story of Jesus filled with the love of his Father so much that when it comes to people wanting to give him praise and say how wonderful he is, it isn't important. All he cares about is the person who's in front of him, and he loves him, and so he's able to take this man away from the crowd, outside the village, and there he deals with him in a loving way. You and I have got to make sure that we are founded on the love that God has for us, and when we're founded on that love, certainly it's important for us to say, oh, hey, you're great, and to receive praise and security from others. But our foundation is the love that God has for us, and so much of this world of the stars and the politicians and the sports people that become our idol, if you will, we can let go and we can just trust in God's love for us and then start caring for the people that are right in front of us, our husband, our wife, our children, our parents, our dear friends, even our enemies. Those are the ones that we take care of, and we're not kind of spending all of our time hoping that people are going to lift us up with their adulation. Point one, and that's a good insight into who Jesus is in our life and who we need now to try to follow. The second is this reality of Jesus touching us with his hands, but touching us also with spittle. Now, I know that sounds awfully crude, and yet it's the beautiful love that, for example, a mother would give when a child has a messy face, and she might pull out a handkerchief, and what does she do if she doesn't have water around? She'll put spittle on the handkerchief and use that as a way of cleaning her child's face. There's a real intimacy there, and that's part of this worldness that Christ is continually using as a means of bringing about the wonder of his message. Now, I've been thinking about this importance of touch, this fact of spittle that we've read in this 8th chapter of Mark. And I started thinking also of Jesus' relationship to so many other physical things. For example, remember the one time Jesus had been very busy. Oh gosh, he'd been healing people and preaching. And he says, I need to get away. And so he got with his apostles, and they got into a boat, and they got out into the middle of the sea in order for Christ to rest. And he fell asleep up in the front of the boat. But while he was sleeping, a terrible storm came. Oh my gosh, the wind was blowing, and the waves looked like they were going to overcome the whole boat, and they were going to sink. And the apostles come rushing up to Jesus, and they wake him up and said, what are you doing sleeping? He said, don't you realize we're going to die? And Jesus stands up, and he talks to the wind. And what does he say? He says, be still. He talks to the wind, and the wind obeys. Whoom, and a quiet comes. There's something about Jesus that has this deep physical intimacy with the world, and this intimacy allows him to move into a sense of control and power through that relationship that he has it. So that when he uses his hand and he touches the eyes of that person, it's not just, oh, well, I'll just touch the eyes. There's a relationship between his physical hand and the physical eye of that person that's very intimate and real. Christ is almost like part of the blindness. He's part of the pain that this man is feeling, and he allows that force of his love and that relationship with the physical world to be the source of healing. He touches it with his spittle, with his hand, and suddenly people can start to see. He can come into the situation of a storm, and the wind is blowing, and he is so in touch with the wind it's not just something that's coming against him. It's like he knows the wind, and he's with the wind. He's a real, and I hope you don't take me wrong when I say this, he's a real environmentalist. He knows the world, and he's one with the world in a powerful, rich, and intimate way. So much so that when that wind starts to blow, he can stand up and say to it, be quiet. He can talk to the wind, and it stops. Isn't that amazing? This is this Christ that we're living with, this Christ who is certainly very much concerned about doing the Father's will and founded on that love that the Father has for him, so that he can let go of all the importance of, oh, you're great, Jesus, you're wonderful. No, it doesn't matter. He cares about the person in front of him. But also, Jesus has a deep relationship with the physical world that as God he has come into. And he knows the touch. And he can touch the eye and see that. And he can use the spittle, and there's a relationship. He can touch the wind. And remember the other time in Scripture? Remember the apostles were out in the middle of the sea again. And what does Jesus do but comes walking to them on the sea? Now, we all kind of say, oh, well, Jesus is God and he can do that. But I want to be able to touch what it must have been like for Jesus to live in the world that he loved, of which he was the creator, and he was so a part of that water that he could actually walk on the water. Do you get what I'm getting at? I'm getting at a call to understand that Jesus is part of our world, part of your world, part of your physical world, part of an intimacy with your world, a love of your world, and a power that comes through that love that enables him to enter into the brokenness and to the sickness of your world and bring healing. That's the force of Jesus. The humble Jesus, the one empowered by the Father, but the Jesus that is so in touch with the world in which he lives, and so in touch with the wholeness and the goodness of the world that he's able to allow people to start to say, I'm going to touch that eye, and in my touch, the physical reality of a diseased eye, of an eye that's blind, will now see. And a wind that blows and brings about destruction, I can say, be quiet. And a water that seems to be so able to drink me up, I can say, I'm going to walk on the water. Brothers and sisters, let's listen to Christ in this gospel message. Let's make sure that the foundation of our lives are founded on a deep love of God the Father for us. And when we find ourselves in our insecurity, wondering, oh gosh, I wonder if I can be famous. I wonder if I could be really outstanding. I wonder if people will say all kind of nice things about me. That we can listen to Christ and surrender ourselves in humility to that love that God has for us and be at peace, even if we're rejected, even if people persecute us, even if people put us down because we're trying to follow the good message that Christ has given us. If we have that humility and that foundation of God's love, we can move ahead, not worrying about what other people think. And as we see Christ moving with the physical world of touching the blind man, of using spittle, of walking on the sea, of calming the wind, may we imitate Christ with a brand new openness of our eyes and our hearts to the presence of the world, to the presence of the creation of which Christ is a part. A new evaluation of things that, so many times we forget. I don't know about you, but I can walk into a room and I am so preoccupied with other things that I don't even look at the color of the walls. I don't even look at the pictures. I don't even admire the rose that's there or the sky that's there. May I start to learn from this parable a real challenge of intimacy and growing respect for the created world in which we live. And this is getting down to the power. This is getting down to the force of using this world now to reach out with healing and hope and love to the people with whom we live. Oh, Jesus, thank you for entering into our worlds. Thank you for being so humble in the face of a world in which I live, in which it's so important to be, adulated. Thank you also, Lord, for giving a new understanding of this physical world. Thank you for touching the world, and help me in my absent-mindedness and my distractions to continually go into the depth of the beauty of your creation, and may I find in that the power of bringing people closer to you and bringing the healing that we all long for through the touch and the love that only you can give. It's very important that you share in this ministry by offering your prayers and also by offering your donations to allow us to continue. We need your help. And as a sign of my support of you for your support, I'd like to send you a copy of this book by a friend of mine, Father Marty Padovani, a Divine Word missionary. The title of the book is Healing Wounded Emotions. This book is going to touch such topics as how do you deal with anger? How do you deal with forgiving others? How do you deal with forgiving self? And oh my, one of the big important topics, how do we deal with depression in our life? Father Marty is going to give you a perspective of a Christian who has been able to touch the heart of a solution and true healing. Remember, ask for the book, Healing Wounded Emotions. Last night I was with a group of people and I was praying with them, and we had a healing mass. And I moved through probably 150, 200 people, laying hands on them. And as I was praying over them, they came, I could think of this reality of Christ wanting to use touch, wanting to use our physical world, wanting to use the love that we have to bring healing and wholeness. And I believed through that touch that there were healings of cancer. There were healings of broken relationships. There were healings of memories that people have that have bogged them down, and memories that are causing deep depression. Even healings that are happening in people's souls with an addiction to sin and holding on to something and being free. Now, this ministry is very much dependent on you. I need your prayers. I need you to go to the Lord and ask for special blessings. But I also need for you to communicate with us. We have a web page, and if you can go into that web page, you can watch the television show, and you can also communicate with us your special prayer intentions. But also, I want you to remember that you need to write and tell me what's going on. Oh, the other thing too is the telephone. There's a telephone number there. We've got some wonderful counselors that are here that really want to hear from you. So would you pick up your telephone and give us a call? But also write your letter. We've got all kinds of intentions of people that have written to us. Lord, we need your power. We need that same love that you gave to that blind man to open our hearts and open our souls to your love. Bless these people in a mighty way. Bring your hope and your love. Now may Jesus' love for you always make you smile.